All right, everyone, welcome back to the Command Your Brand Show. I'm your host, Josh Silvestro, brand ambassador of Command Your Brand, where we help CEOs and founders get on top-rated podcasts. Check us out at www.commandyourbrand.com. So in today's episode, I have a very special guest who I'm kind of fascinated about his business. And, he's been trying to get on shows for a while and wants to talk about it and really get his name out more. So I'd like to introduce you guys to Martin. Martin, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks, Josh. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of get my story out with you folks.
Yeah. So I guess for people who don't know who you are, and a lot of people who are listening want to know more about you and about your company. So I guess tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, and also the company. Like, tell us a little bit about your company as well.
Okay, so I've been around for a while. You can tell I'm an older guy.
Yeah.
And so I kind of all my life have had this desire to try to help bring justice to the world, because I think generationally, my family has experienced a lot of injustice, and based on my knowledge about genetics, that kind of gets ingrained in your epigenome. And so I always felt the feeling that I've got to do something meaningful with my life. And that was kind of the onset, and I've kind of grown through that mission.
Wow, awesome. And so what made you decide to just go to this, making this company LeapXX? I'm just kind of fascinated. What gave you the click, I need to start this?
Well, look, it's a long story. I've been into, alternative and natural medicine for a long time, based on, my own needs at the beginning. And then it kind of, led me down the path of learning more and more about finding different ways, practical ways, to try to help people. And ultimately, that's what I've always been doing. So I did a stint in a small biotech company and called Cygene Laboratories, and I was there for 13 years as the CEO. And that company I joined because their intellectual property had been stolen. And through a fraudulent transaction offshore, very sophisticated stuff. And I was able to get it back. And that's how I became CEO and equal partner in the company. Now, we had some disruptive technology, and that's what I've always been looking for is, technologies that have either been ignored or overlooked or stolen and put on the shelf somewhere, that really had some significant potential for impact on humanity and society and things like that. But, they're always kind of put away because they impede somebody's profits. That's the bottom line. It's about money. So, I joined Cygene Labs. We had some really great molecular technology, and it was always a challenge. And, getting the patents back from a big pharma company that had set up the scam to steal the intellectual properties wasn't easy. And I certainly got on their radar. And they have since been following me. Now, that company, ultimately, they did put me in the ground after 13 years. It wasn't easy for them, but they did it ultimately. We were on the NASDAQ, small cap. They put me through putting people on my board that really didn't have any value, but were looking to do harm to the company. They put us through inception audits, 9 years, 1 year, and another 10-year audit after. The first one became a forensic audit, and it was all riddled with lies and innuendo and just reasons to go forensic. And at the end, the only thing they found was that I didn't accrue my compensation and report it properly. So I wasn't taking my salary. I was paying myself less than my employees. And, I was accruing it at some point. I was hoping to get paid back. And so they thought that that was the big deal, but ultimately they were looking for something to hang me with. And they didn't find it. Very disappointed, obviously. And then ultimately they invited me through, I was talking at so many different conferences, FDA, Health and Human Services, German Red Cross. I spoke there at the Russian Academy of Sciences. I was invited all over the place to speak. And so I was invited by Bloomberg News to present at a symposium for the future of pharma, and we were into consumer genetics and had developed the test for Plavix at the time. And the FDA themselves had put out a black box warning: don't use this unless you know your genetics. If you have this genetics, the drug doesn't work. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So ultimately, what happened was I went there, presented the case based on a case study that was published on another blood thinner, Coumadin, and said, look, this is how much the system can save by doing this testing. And it was recommended directly by the FDA. We can do the test for $50 direct to consumer. And at that time, most people weren't getting it because it cost $600 to $800 through the regular channels. So what ultimately happened was I wasn't back from the conference. I was on a red eye coming back. Then next morning, I went into the office, and right on the fax was a fax from the FDA telling me to cease and desist and that I'm practicing medicine without a license and everything for something they recommended. Okay, they themselves had said. So, look, unfortunately, and again, here comes to the injustice side. The regulators have been infiltrated by industry. Has been allowed. Everybody's been closing their eyes to it. They contribute to all the campaigns. They make shitloads of money, and therefore they can afford to influence all those that they need to influence. So, look, when you watch TV these days, it's riddled with commercials for drugs that if you really listen to the small print, which is voiced at the end, you'd wonder, why would I take something that could kill me because I have a rash? Okay, so it just doesn't make sense. But the sense comes in because all that advertising, all the dollars that flow in that way, allow them to control or to dictate the narrative of what they report on. So it's all an influence peddling type thing. And, all these things are injustices. I've seen so many in my career. And, even though I'd like to go out there and pronounce them, expose them, we're lucky now. We live in an era where, podcasts like yours are out there and trying to show the truth, because the media certainly doesn't have the propensity for that these days. And it really doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. They're all crooked. So at the end, it's a dirty system. So I started this company. So when Cygene Labs went under, I started to consult for companies that were also in breakthrough technologies that were having difficulty getting funding. And with us at Cygene, decades went by, a decade and change, trying to raise money, mostly from private investors. But every time we were about to grab that brass ring, it slipped out from between our fingers. And it was no longer a question of being, coincidences. It was orchestrated. And we're dealing with a very powerful industry that sucks about a third of our gross domestic product out of our coffers, and we pay for uh, everything that they do. And it's something that needs to change. Now, hopefully, there is a chance for change. I'm very hopeful with AI that a lot of things will, unravel. But again, AI is one of those platforms where it's, what comes out is equal to what you put in. So if you don't tell it the truth, I'd use AI. And I see from the search engine results that, a lot of the stuff that's been kind of filtered out, which are natural approaches to doing things that are usually, complicated and treated with difficult means, uh, you know, these are things that I think at the end need to be exposed, but we don't have the ability because there's so much power behind it. So I'm trying to be a tool for the future and try to contribute what I can. I have a lot of knowledge I've accumulated, and I try to help a lot of people. So
Yeah,
this came about trying to help my mom, and I know I'm not letting you speak. So
that's okay.
let me tell you the story how I started Evolutionary Leap Technologies, and as the name
Yeah.
states, so I started helping other companies that had technologies, and they all suffered the same fate. They were all jerked around forever and a day. Oh, the deal's done, and it never got done. And in the process, they were misled and impoverished. They were led to believe they were going to get the funding. They never did. And ultimately, they all failed. And, I saw a pattern that just kept on repeating. Now, the way that I started this was, I was formulating products for different companies to make an income. And, I really was kind of in a slow mo, trying to recover from licking my wounds from my previous endeavor. And what happened, I was trying to help my father write his book actually on his life, which was very interesting. But in the meantime, my mom started failing in her health, and she started falling all the time and becoming forgetful, etc. And she went from one year to the next from a vibrant individual to, just a shell of what she once was. And so I first started to look for different things that were already there that could help her. And of course, the medical establishment had nothing. They said, oh, she's led a good life. She's 80, I think at the time, 85 years old. Just let her go. And I just wasn't willing to do that. And I was really frightened for the progression of what was going on. And so, I started to look back. I'm an engineer. I have a master's in engineering, and so I decided to go. What are the essential building blocks of the body, of the human body, of the brain, of every part of it? What makes it tick? And we all know these things. They're really fundamental. But the really simple things are always the most elegant solutions. And so, we all know we need clean air. We try to breathe it. We've learned back in the 70s already, there were studies that showed that even in the most polluted cities, the air inside the house or the condo was more polluted than outside. And so we need clean air. We need clean water. Without air, we only live a short period. Without water, it's a little bit longer, but not much. We now go to filtered water and we drink clean water whenever we can. Now we know there's all these microplastics in there, just another wrinkle. But
Yeah.
at the end, the next most important substance, which is really the key to all three of them, is protein. And protein is a very misunderstood substance. Everybody thinks protein is protein. Well, it's not. Okay. Protein is really an agglomeration of mostly amino acids. And there's the essential amino acids, which we need 9 of. And each protein source makes its own amino acids based on their needs. So all the non-essential or most of the non-essential amino acids, we make 12 of them that we know of at least. So there's 9 essentials and then another 12 non-essential amino acids, and they all are part of the whole metabolism and how it works. They just make everything work. You miss one of them or are deficient in it, and you're going to find an effect for that later on. So I started looking at amino acids, which are the essence of protein, and people were trying to copy what's in meat and what's in other things. I knew from experience that, living as a vegan or vegetarian is very difficult and to stay healthy and vibrant because plants don't really have that great of an amino acid profile. We basically are closer to animals. So animal protein is a lot better, but who wants to eat all this tortured meat? So that people become vegetarians because of that. But at the end, uh, they're not getting a good balance of the amino acids. And the evolutionary leap that I'm trying to make with my amino acid formulas is to provide a protein alternative, a substitute for protein with the essence of protein. So I mentioned, plants. They have non-essential amino acids that make roots, make leaves, make flowers, make seeds, everything that the plant will make for its own use. just like animals will make feathers and beaks and all kinds of things that they need.
Right.
Uh, at the end, what makes for an ideal protein for humans? Well, it's not what we get from any natural source. Okay. So I went back to the drawing board and basically came up with a formula that would be better suited for humans than natural proteins. And I started marketing a product. Well, at first I gave it to my mom. And when I first had the formula, I was working on it. She was my guinea pig, so was my dad and myself.
Yeah.
And when she finally got the right formula, within about 6 weeks, she went from needing assistance and getting up out of a chair to jumping up when the doorbell rang and running to the door to see who's there. So this was really impressive that within such a short period of time, there would be such a significant change. And so I continued working on the formula. That was just the first part of it. I then went to working on other things that I knew were necessary for longevity. And all this is about longevity. Look, we're going to live a lot longer if we can sidestep disease and, of course, getting hit by a truck or a bus. But we're going to live, we have the biological ability to 130 or so. How do we do that? Well, we've got to get clean air, clean water, and clean protein. And our protein is so polluted these days that it's making a lot of people sick. And then it's still not the ideal protein. So this is what my alternative protein is. It's an amino acid formulation. It has essential and non-essential amino acids that humans need, and it's helped people in a lot of different ways. Everybody well, not everybody, but most people who benefit from it, they have benefits that are different from the others.
Right.
So that's really impressive to me. So the next phase of the ingredient groups were based on epigenetic regulation. So again, the building blocks of what makes epigenetics. And this is something I learned in the biotech world when we're doing predictive genetic testing. You could have two identical twins, and one would get sick with a debilitating disease and the other one wouldn't. So, how's that possible? They lived the same life and everything. Well, not exactly the same life. They had different character traits. They had different things that they did and food that they ate. And thus, one went to the point where they deregulated their epigenome, which are the chemical structures that regulate how genes behave. And the other one, obviously, one kept it and one lost it. And
Right.
once you lose that regulation, then the genes can run amok. Okay.
Right.
And that leads to, and we all know from studies, when you're a babe, when you're born, you have all your epigenetics. And as you age, you lose it.
Yeah.
So why not regulate? Why not keep it? So that's what I provided the building blocks and other promoters that will enhance the epigenetic regulation. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's a very big nutshell. But I would say it's very fascinating how, you're right about the fact that people just, especially the pharmaceutical companies, just like promote drugs so heavily. And I think a lot of people hide the fact that there's, the cure for a lot of things, but it's not quite open as a lot of people are talking about. So I think what your company seems like it's an amazing product of what you're doing in terms of getting people actually better rather than making people worse. Because I found, in my experience, having dealt with friends and family who just on pharmaceutical type drugs, they just don't really get better. They actually are starting to get worse just by taking it. So I actually appreciate that more and kind of understand. And just out of curiosity, from your standpoint, like how effective do you feel this is in terms of long term usage? Like, do you think this will be effective for years to come? Is it a short term? Is it a long term? What is your take on that?
Well, look, I've wanted for a long time. I filed a patent on it, a half a decade ago. But I wanted to make the formula that I have, which is basically a drink, and there's two different versions of it. One more elaborate, the one that I developed for my mom is Leap to Be Fit, and the other one is just the macronutrient side of the formula with a couple of cofactors. But at the end, this is something that should be food. We're running over 50% deficiency in protein production in the world. Okay, so that means that more than 50% of the people on this planet are running a deficiency in the number one nutrient that humans need to thrive. And this is something that also affects the planet. Okay. Now, traditionally, I'm a tree hugger. I'm a hippie from the old days, and I believe in justice and taking care of nature and the world. And, a lot of things have become politicized, and all the corruption in the media has such a big influence on propaganda being really espoused. And, I'll give you one example. Became a political thing in the last or in previous elections before that is climate change. Well, climate change. Well, there's a real simple physical explanation as to why climate change occurs. Normally, it occurs in nature by itself, but we've accelerated it. And how did we do that? Well, we've taken literally billions or trillions of tons out of the earth, that mass that's being extracted out of the earth and pulverized into the atmosphere so that the earth is actually lighter now. Okay. Now, probably it's turning a little faster, I would say, maybe. I don't know what forces are at play, but, this has an effect. And the climate change, we're seeing it. Yeah, there's no denying it, really. But, the knee jerk reaction is, oh, let's jump, let's trash that, let's start it with something new. Well, that's not practical. To go to electric vehicles right away and stop drilling for oil, we have to find a way forward. And, what survival on this planet is going to require some meaningful thought. And when people jump from one thing to the other without knowing the consequence and without knowing what the disadvantages are based on the new technology, and then basically causing all kinds of havoc, that's not a viable way of doing things. We need to transition. And I've been talking about this since the 70s. So, the transition hasn't occurred, and then now it's everybody's in a hurry. Oh, we got to do this. Well, the 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 horse is already out of the barn, uh, but we have to live with it. These are consequences, same as the damage caused by the food supply, which is ever more toxic. And, I have a private member group where I try to help people that are really sick. And, the incidences of so many different degenerative and deadly diseases is increasing dramatically. And, this is finally being addressed now. But I'm afraid that the big industries, which basically benefit and profit from this, of course, they say that they're obligated, it's their obligation to make the most profit for their companies. Well, I wonder if illegal things and crimes against humanity and taking technologies off the market that are beneficial for mankind don't constitute enough to stop them from doing that. And like I said, I kind of worked with a lot of companies that had breakthrough technologies. They all ended up away. And I'm sure there are stem cell technologies and other technologies that have gone the same way. So it would be good if we finally, take a sober look. And, if we don't want to buy into the depopulation agenda of some of these super rich people who think they can survive us, uh, you know, we really need to make some changes in this world. And I think shedding light is the best disinfectant that we can have. I have evidence of crimes against humanity enough. Okay, I have evidence. I can prove it, and people can see it's true. It's not some whack job, conspiracy theorist who's coming up with this. But it's too dangerous at this point for me to disclose it because, I know what they do with people who blow the whistle. They do away with them,
Right.
So eventually, I hope this will come out. So, but the product itself was intended as a food, as a replacement for protein. Maybe we can reduce, this drive for more food production has led the industry to do more and more damage to the planet, to the plants, to the animals, and to us. Okay,
Mm,
so let's rethink food for a minute. Yes, we don't have enough protein production capability to feed an ever growing population, but we also know from history that once a civilization stops growing, it goes extinct. So we want to keep uh, 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 living, and there is no reason that we can't nourish ourselves and do that without the dramatic impact in a lot better way, live longer lives and have productivity. Everybody has their talents, and even when AI comes in and eliminates a lot of jobs with robotics, etc., I hope that mankind transitions over to trying to help people to develop their talents and go in directions that they haven't gone before. So that's kind of the nutcase here. Now making amino acids is a process of fermentation with bacteria and doesn't have an impact as it does growing crops and spraying poisons on them and then feeding that garbage to humans and to the animals that we then eat that are then poisoned as well. And, this is a cycle we need to break if we want to live long and prosper. And that's
right.
actually what LEAP stands for. It's live, evolve, and prosper.
That's a very interesting. I like that title.
Mhm.
But I do have a question on that. Like, what do you think in terms of the future of how the food industry and just the how things are going to go? Like, do you think things will change with your product, or do you think things will just kind of remain the same or go downward? What do you think will happen?
Well, look, the industries have been trying to crush me. I've been in the market with this product for 12 years. It has remarkable results. I can't say anything about it because, again, the regulators, not really the regulators themselves, but their handlers, which is the industry, would come after me guns blazing. So I can't say anything. It kind of sells by word of mouth. Okay.
Right.
Now, the food products, I'm hoping will change that. And we already have a fruit roll up that we're looking to bring into the market and some chocolate bars and we use chocolate because it really masks the flavor of all of these different amino acids nicely, and you don't have to use any artificial or natural flavors. But we have a lot of different things on the horizon that we're looking forward to. But I'm kind of kept in under control by they keep crashing my website. Last year, 2 months out of the year, we lost revenue because they were constantly taking down our website. We're building new websites every year.
Right.
And if they can't get into it, which they definitely can't at this point, they're interrupting the traffic between the website and let's say USPS and FedEx when they're trying to get rates for shipping. And the same thing to get credit cards validated. So people try to order and order and order, and they can't order, and then they go away. So that's how they keep me under wraps. But ultimately, yes, this should be the protein source of the future. Yeah, I'm not saying we eliminate all food. No, that's silly. That's not practical, and that's not what I'm about. No, but it can be a supplement to the food. And, look, what in essence it is, everything in the body is about energy. Everything is ATP. And once you get your nitrogen balance in your body positive, meaning you have more amino acids than you need, your body is building. It gets to a point where it's called anabolic, so it's building better than catabolic, which is breaking down. Now, uh, when you are taking this formula in addition to your diet, I mean, I'm to the point where after a few years taking it, I only eat one meal a day. I really don't need to eat. I'm happy, I'm satisfied, I'm not hungry, and I have great energy levels, better than when I was in my 40s. Uh, and I'm over 70 at this stage. So, uh, you know, the cells that are produced under a high nitrogen content will produce cells that have a higher density in mitochondria. Mitochondria is what makes the energy, the ATP in your body. Okay. And that helps your immune system. It helps everything. Hormone levels go, everything gets better when you have enough protein or amino acids. And that's what I've seen with my formula when people take it in addition to what they're normally eating, and they can reduce that. But it's up to them. Everybody has free will.
Right.
But at the
That makes
end,
sense. Yeah.
one serving of my product gives you about 1/3 of your daily needs of protein. Uh,
Mm.
and that's not shabby, no?
Yeah, that's
Uh,
not shabby at all.
so if you can now take this and extrapolate it and provide it as food for the population, not only is the population going to thrive, now the masters are not going to like this. I can tell you that. They want us weak. They want us stupid. They want us distracted. They want us taking drugs and just focused on sex or just making money in order to keep us in line and keep us from, thinking about other things. But at the end, uh, you want to be vibrant. That's what everybody wants to be. Live a good, long, healthy, vibrant life. And that's what basically cleaning up the protein supply will do.
Mm. Very fascinating. I would love to. I know you mentioned one or two people. I would love to also hear any feedback, like a lot of the wins or successes you've had from this. Just the like from giving it to people, or like that who had just
Well,
testimonials.
look, I can't speak specifically to anything because
Sure.
again, they'll come after me for my supplement being elevated to the status of a drug if I ever bring it in context with anything. But at the end, the product has helped a lot of people in a lot of different ways. They get stronger, they uh, just are more vibrant. And, when everything relies on energy, when you have all the energy that you need, you're going to lead a better life. And that's
Mm.
what we've seen. We've seen longevity, signs of longevity, reduction in inflammation, reduction in issues that relate to preventable epigenetic regulation, dysregulation in this sense, and just providing the building blocks that we're made of in a very bioavailable form where you don't have to digest and detoxify the stuff that isn't good for you and just ferret out what's good. Uh, this makes a world of difference. So I could give you dozens or, we were back ordered up to last month for 2.5 months. And
Oh,
out of the hundreds of orders that came in, there were only less than a dozen of people that wanted their money back. And so that's kind of a testament for what it's doing for people.
wow. It's awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time you've given me to really just sink my teeth into this area. I'm like so fascinated, like just health and just the whole industry that you're talking about. I guess before we go, I love for people to kind of reach out to you and to just get to know you better, or like get to know your product. Is there? I know it's going to sound kind of funny, but is there a place they can go to that they can kind of either get to know you or maybe get to know your product or anything like that?
Well, the product is sold at leapxx.com. That's LEAPXX.com. And it actually came up from that logo that you see behind me. I had sponsored a mixed martial arts fighter. And when I saw his logo on his shorts, it looked like LeapXX. I thought, oh, wow, that's a great domain name. Let's see if it's available. And sure enough, it is. And they can also email me at martin@leapxx.com. And I'm usually pretty good at answering people back. And I try to help everybody I can. I miss out on a lot of business because I try to help people, and that's just fine by me. Okay.
Mhm.
I think all of us should aspire towards doing something good for others.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Martin. I really appreciate the time you've given me just to really ask a lot of some questions. I know you had a big story, and I would love to hear that story. I think it's an amazing thing that you did, and especially, just what you're doing, especially the health industry and getting people better. I think that's so amazing, and let people live longer. I think that's always important too. So I really appreciate the time and the questions, and of your busy schedule. I really appreciate what you've done.
Well, thanks, Josh. I really appreciate you and what your whole group there is doing. So,
Yeah.
best of luck. All the best to you guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for also watching too, or listening. If you guys are just listening, and if you guys like this stuff, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.